Welcome, everyone, to a special episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I am your host, Lou Diamond, and today on Thrive Loud, we have three authors and coaches with more than 50 years of combined experience helping founders and leaders unleash the human potential of their teams. Their new status quo shattering book called Lead Together, available on November 17th, this 2020, challenges the reader to consider a braver, bolder, and more empathy-driven way of leading and working. Thrive Loud listeners, fittingly, the tri-authors of Lead Together are all together. Brent Lowe, Susan Basterfield, and Travis Marsh. Welcome to Thrive Loud. How is everyone today? I've got all three of you here.
Fantastic. Thanks for having us, Lou.
So
I really appreciate being here.
You got it. And to give the listeners a feel for this, global feel, Brent, you're joining us from Canada. Travis is on vacation in Mexico, and Susan is joining us from all the way in New Zealand. First of all, Susan, how are you at this very early hour that we got you?
Really well. It's not that early. It's 8:30 on Thursday morning, and I can tell you the future is pretty bright. We're coming into springtime, and yeah, I'm really stoked to get this conversation going.
So I'm going to start off with the obvious question right at the top of the show. How did the three of you get together to then decide to come together and put together a book together, which is called Lead Together? So Brent, can I start with you, and then we'll bounce across, if that's okay?
For sure. So this is really the environment where we met online. I don't know how many years ago, 5-6 years ago. We were part of an online community, and we started to just interact very casually that way. And then Travis, being the entrepreneurial spirit that he is, reached out to the group of us. There were many of us that were together in an online community, saying, "Hey, do you want to take this information that we're talking about, which was very similar to the information in our book, and get together and pitch for a speaking engagement at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas?" So the three of us came together, we pitched, we got the spot, and that started us down the writing journey, because we thought we need to have something to give away at this session that we're going to be hosting. And now here we are 3 books later.
Susan, I'm going to jump over to you now. So in meeting virtually online and then working together, obviously you're globally all across from this virtual world. What was it like working together to try to put all these ideas together, since you're all literally across the globe in different time zones and different times to get things done?
I mean, it was amazingly organic, actually. The idea that there's so many elements, obviously, of the way that we work, and each of us sort of come from different perspectives and have different takes on everything from how we do performance reviews to how we do strategy to how we think about decision making, that we each had sort of our, I don't want to say specialty areas, but areas that we were more energetically attracted to. So we kind of just brainstorm, what do these chapters look like? And then kind of each pick the ones that felt closest to what we wanted to write about. And that's how we started. So basically, this is really the third version of the book, or the third book. And we started this practice with the pamphlet that we created for South by, and it's persisted ever since. So it's not as hard as you might think if you put a little bit of thought into how you're going to decentralize and distribute the work.
Travis, want to move over to you, and let's talk about what this is speaking about in Lead Together. I'm going to ask a question that I'm most curious about, since you're all coming from a coaching leadership mindset, and that is maybe what is the prevailing problem that you guys were seeing in the business community today that might have sparked why this book is something that leaders should be taking a look at?
Yeah, it's such a great question, right? Because I think we all can see and notice how challenged the current environment is. There's places where we don't even agree on the same set of facts. We don't have the same set of information, but all of us have this sense that something's not working well in the current system, right? And a lot of that can be traced back down to decisions on the business side that people are trying their best, and they care about the people, and they care about the planet. And I talk to business leaders, and we all do all the time, and I'm inspired by what they're trying to do. And at the same time, the decisions that they make day in and day out aren't always in perfect alignment with that, because there's such complexity there. And so we know the current system is broken and challenged. And what's really missing is an example or path to follow that can make us and take us out of this, right? How do we, like Susan was talking about, do performance reviews well? How do we do compensation? How do we set up our legal agreements? And so there's quite a few books out there that talk about the why and what's needed. And they're great, and they're incredibly inspiring. So the book that brought us together was written by Frederick Laloux, Reinventing Organizations. Absolutely phenomenal view of what the future might hold. And what we wanted to do in this book was map out a lot of the how that people can get there that are interested in taking that next step.
So I'll bounce back over to you, Brent, and that is, as it relates to who your audience is. I know this sounds really interesting, but a lot of times leadership books might be thought of geared towards leaders, but it ends up being those that are being led that also read it as well. I guess, what audience were you trying to target when you were getting this message together for Lead Together?
Mm-hmm. Great question.
I'm only full of great questions today. I literally prepared for you guys.
Excellent. Fantastic. Love it. So funny enough, we were together 2 years ago today, launching the process of writing this book. And the first question we started with was exactly that one, which is, who are we writing this for exactly? And we really have written this book for founders of scaling businesses and the natural leaders within those businesses. So the whole concept that we talk about in Lead Together is that in order to scale in a new and different way, we need to bring the team together so that everyone has the opportunity to lead. And that starts with one person generally, and that is the founder of the organization. Most of what we speak of in the book applies to any leader in any situation, whether that's somebody who has leadership in their title or somebody who's just inspired to lead within their organization. But first and foremost, it's been written for those that are within an environment that they have the influence to really make a difference.
Susan, I want to bounce over to you. And the real question, in the world we're in today, and most fittingly that you're in New Zealand, which I know has been locked off from most of the world, and a lot of what's going on in how leaders are leading right now during this pandemic. Give me some components about key aspects of Lead Together that are specifically relevant to the world we're living in right now.
So the truth, if we dare to look at it, is that the structures from within which we organize were created at the advent and just following the Industrial Revolution, right? So based on the premise that there are a couple people at the top who have either invested all their money and then deserve all the riches, or that they've had the education and they're the only ones that are smart enough to make these decisions. These tend to be pejorative decisions that assume the worst about the people who are actually doing the real work. And it's funny, we've made so much quote unquote progress in what we produce, how we produce it. But the one thing that we've not really looked at for the last 150 years is how we're organized. And the premise that the collective intelligence that's at our fingertips, if we dare to take some risks and bring everybody into the conversation for the different perspectives, the diversity, getting a sense of equity, getting a sense of, I think most leaders know that they don't have all the answers. Most founders know that they don't have all the answers, but because the prevailing and the predominant paradigm of the founder being the boss and having all the answers and having to make all the decisions, there just hasn't been the time or the practices available for us to really lean into what we know intrinsically within us. And I think that especially in this time, we know that these problems are not going to be solved by the people with power necessarily. They will be part of the process, but it's really the challenge for them to how can they open up and start to practice this idea of being shoulder to shoulder rather than on top of the pyramid.
Travis, along these lines, because I'm from the camp of the greatest leaders ask the most questions and lead by sourcing around and going and living from a culture of asking versus a telling mentality. And that is really the best, most fluid organizations that work that way. Is the writing that you guys have put together and lead together, has it been geared more towards traditional larger companies, or is it something that can go to any size organization? I guess, are there certain things that you've put in here that are maybe more applicable to different structures or different industries? Curious to know, I guess, what your framework was when you were putting this together.
That was another thing that was right on the top of our list when we were thinking about this 2 years ago today, when we were meeting in that little cabin in Ontario. And we really wanted to focus on the unusual. And so really highlight the small and scaling businesses. So we interviewed over 200, there's over 200 stories in the book from 70 different companies that are in there. And most of them are from sub 500 person companies. So we really wanted to emphasize that this can be done and is best started when you're small. You can absolutely roll out and scale this to larger organizations. And it has. There's some organizations that have scaled to tens of thousands of people doing many of the practices that are in here. But there's so much time and attention that's given to the big companies nowadays. We wanted to show and highlight how it's possible and even useful to do on whatever scale that you're at.
Susan, do you think that it's always difficult when one coach opines about a certain solution? I want to know what it was like in your brainstorming sessions, because nobody all gets along, and there probably were a lot of great question asking sessions from 3 coaches. Was there ever too much coaching going on in the development of the content you guys were putting together?
I wouldn't call it necessarily coaching, but like some rampant disagreement, right? Okay. We love and trust each other, and we have chosen to work together for the last 3 or 4 years. But yeah, I think it would be disingenuous and also maybe a little bit misleading to think that we get together all the time. Yeah, there were a couple of chapters that we really angsted over. One was the chapter on diversity and inclusion, and the other one was the chapter on so-called feedback. And yeah, I mean, I felt like sometimes, if I'm honest, I was almost like I might have to step out because this is so important to me. And I'm sure that that Travis and Brent had those moments as well. But the difference is that we worked through it. We kept on talking. We kept on trying to find compromises, because the book itself and the broadness and the vastness of what we're trying to share wasn't about our egos and about what we were attached to. And I think that again, that's another lesson for companies and leaders generally, that if you trust each other, if you know that everybody's coming from the right place, we can make the compromises that we need to still be in integrity with what we believe.
I'm going to ask Brent the toughest question of all here. Has the process of putting a book together with 3 authors of 3 brilliant leaders, is it something that could be representative in the way that other people should be thinking about how they lead? Because putting a book together is a leading initiative. So the question, Brent, is, did the way that you guys work, is that something where you guys were, practicing what you preach? Were you able to put that together? Were you leading together in developing this content?
We were definitely leading together. We were not always practicing what we were preaching, if you will. But, most of the time we were. And I think, just to jump on what Susan was saying, because I think it's so valuable to understand, Lead Together, the book, does not provide a standard set of steps that every organization should be going through. We really believe every group is unique and requires needs to go through the process to find its own way. And that's what we did, and we continue to do. And right before we got on this call, we were having another debate about something. And it all starts with the ability to create a space where it is safe for healthy debate. And that's really what we worked to create amongst ourselves. And did sometimes we get close to the edge of that safe space? Yes, we did. And it's one of the benefits of having a team where there are more than two people is there's normally a third person available to help bring the group back together. And we used that tool a few times in the process.
I'm going to ask a question. We're going to go around the circle here. Travis, I'll start with you, and we'll go through. I love talking to great leaders. And obviously, look, just the work that you've done in your own careers individually and then combined together to come up with great communications shows that you're thriving each and every day, wherever you are in the world, or on vacation, as Travis is starting to be from his very nice shirt he's wearing here on a relaxed day on the west coast of Mexico. But there are days when we're not kicking on all cylinders and not quite thriving. When you all have trouble thriving, who or what practice do you seek to get yourself back on the thriving track? Travis, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it's such a good question, right? Because everybody's facing these challenges of resilience right now. It's feeling like a lot more brittleness out there as everybody's under a lot more stress. For me, it comes back to the people. I'm so inspired by Brent and Susan. And so when I'm working together with them on the book, right, if I'm falling down or tripping up for a day, what I want to do most is get on a call with them. They are constantly raising the bar. They're constantly teaching me new things, and they're sharing inspiring stories from the clients that they're working with. And that stuff energizes me. And it's not perfect, and it doesn't always kick things back into gear, but it's the most likely thing that works for me.
You didn't put any pressure on Susan and Brent here, having to give the fact that they're part of the reason. But Susan, how do you get back on the thriving track?
Yeah, so for me, it has something to do with working out loud and gratitude, right? Okay. So I live in an island in the South Pacific, right? And I would not have found these guys, or I would have not have found my kind of secret, unique recipe to thriving if I wasn't reading and seeking and finding tweets or blogs or podcasts and being inspired by people I don't know. I call myself a little pseudo stalker. Like so many of the people that have become super important influences in my life have become that because I've read something or heard something and I've just written a note to say thanks. And what about this? And I'd love to hop on a call, right? So for me, it's about using the technology that we have to be able to build relationships and community across the globe so that we can come together to amplify these things that are important to us. So that's one sure thing that can get me back on the thriving track if I'm feeling sorry for myself or isolated in this beautiful but lockdown country, for example.
And Brent, to you.
One of the things that we talk about in the book is sense and respond, which is a really key element to new ways of working. And so for me, that ability to sense comes through meditation. So whenever I find that I'm falling out of a thriving state, it's usually because I've drifted into the past or into the future. And the ability to ground myself in the present, again, is very, very helpful. And a lot of times I rely on others around me to help kind of remind me that that's what I need to be doing so I can get back to that thriving state.
It's very interesting. You guys did something, whether you meant to or not, Probably not. You wouldn't know this. The keys to today's world, and I speak about this and how you help thrive virtually, because that's what we've been forced to do, is to look to your team, to Travis's point, connect to others, Susan's point, and look within, from Brent's point. And you each covered one of those things. It's almost like you were sitting in one of my lectures or something like that. Who knows? Maybe you were. And if it was, I give you credit. If not, even more so, just validating the point. Let's do this. I want to do the admin part of the show before we start heading down Fun Street. Who wants to take the baton on this? Because I'm going to put it all in the show notes. The book is coming out on November 17th on page 2 books. We'll give some plugs there. Is there social media or sites that we should go? Whoever wants to opine on this, who's going to take the lead on this?
Susan?
They all nodded each other's head as if the listeners need to know this. They each were referencing to the other one because they didn't know. Where can we go to find more about?
So go to leadtogether.co and you'll find information on how to acquire the book, how to pre-order, a little bit about us as authors, how you can get in contact with us, and how we might be able to work together in future. On social, Lead Together on Facebook, Lead Together hashtag. Anything that I'm missing, boys?
Soon to be on LinkedIn as well. So
okay, great. Across all forums, which is where we are right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So here's I'm trying to figure out where to go before Fun Street. I'm gonna do a little something different. Normally I'm gonna save your lasting message here, so we'll end on a real fun high note. But permission to go down Fun Street with each of you, and let me explain this. Each of you, I'm going to ask a question. The first one will have some time to juggle, and then we'll kind of do like a mini speed round. And I'm very curious to see how this goes. I haven't not done this with 3, but hey, 3 authors can work together. I'm sure we can make this podcast work together. All right, let's start off. Movies inspire and connect us, and they mean a lot to us. Can you share with us? I'll start with you, Brent. Go with you first. What's your all-time favorite movie?
Whew. All-time favorite is really tough, but I will say that I just watched the David Attenborough movie that just came out, and super inspiring to see the world through the eyes of a 93-year-old. Yeah. And highly recommend it. Okay.
I'll go over to you, Travis.
So again, all time is really challenging, but
this is a challenging podcast, guys. This. You didn't think this was going to be softball questions. Come on now.
I was waiting for the easy ones. I'm better at those. And so I'm going to reframe it like Brent did and go, The Social Dilemma I've been loving. I met Tristan Harris from the Center for Humane Technology a few years back when he was really starting to advocate for this mission on let's evaluate how the social world is impacting us, how it impacts how we lead, how it impacts how we connect, and where is it helping and where is it not. And if you haven't seen that, I think everybody should get out and see that. It's done really well.
It's required viewing for any parent, and certainly for any, I'd say, middle schooler and up, because I think it's important.
Yep.
I gave you a little more time, Susan, because you rolled your eyes with trying to think of your movie. So what
I've got my movie, but I was trying to think about it if I could be vulnerable enough to share it. So I'm going to go with the easy one. First, my recent favorite is My Octopus Teacher. Again, it should be required viewing for everybody and every family. But my actual all-time favorite movie is The Godfather.
No. It's always one of our classics over here.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And what specifically connects with you about The Godfather? What's the message?
So my dad loved that film, and my dad passed in 1990, and so I still feel like somehow every time I watch it, it's again, you're gonna think that I'm very. I am very unique. It's like our Christmas movie in our house now. So we watch The Godfather every Christmas, and it makes me feel close to my dad.
There you go. That's why we love asking this question. It gets to know who you are, the opening up of that. All right. So the way we're going to do this part, this is normally a speed round, and I'm going to have to ping pong, like a swing going this. So we're going to go Brent, Susan, Travis, then Travis, Susan, Brent, as I go through each one of these questions. So each one of you will have a little bit more time towards the end. Okay. I want the thing that comes to your mind. The first thing that comes to your mind that makes you feel good, that pumps you up, that inspires you, that makes you thrive when I say what these things are, okay? Brent, I'll start with you. A song that pumps you up or gets you motivated.
Speed round.
Yeah, I got to pass. I'm terrible at song names. Terrible.
Susan.
We Will Rock You.
Okay. Travis.
Anything Blink 182.
A favorite food that's not a dessert. Travis.
Pizza.
Susan.
Salmon.
Brent.
Avocado.
A favorite dessert. Brent.
Chocolate chip cookie.
Susan.
Chocolate, 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 chocolate.
Travis.
Ice cream.
Travis, an activity you wish you did more of.
Wakeboarding.
Susan.
Kite surfing.
Brent.
Diving.
Brent, an activity you wish you did less of.
Sleep.
Susan.
Zooming.
Travis.
Netflix.
Netflix. If you could go anywhere in the world, Travis, where are you?
Oh, Colombia.
Susan.
Barcelona.
Brent.
New Zealand.
Getting out of the fun zone here, or more of the best zone, the thing that makes you happiest. What do you want the readers of Lead Together to walk away with? And I'll start with you, Brent, Susan, Travis. Lasting message that you want them to take away from connecting with your book.
Yeah, a sense of confidence that there are other ways that we can be and work together that are effective and feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Susan.
Unapologetic courage.
Travis.
And an action or two that they're going to do this week to try and make things just a little bit better.
Brent Lowe, Susan Basterfield, Travis Marsh, a trio of authors for Lead Together, coming out mid-November. Crushed it here on Thrive Loud. Excited for all of you. Great to meet all of you. And thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Leo.
Thank you.
And to all our listeners and viewers out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.